So the other day I took myself to play some drums. I just booked a studio, got myself some sticks, and went for it. And wow! Banging on stuff in a very specific cadence is wild hard. But you know what's even harder than that? Practicing self-compassion. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I distracted myself or just stopped myself from getting marginally better just because I got so in my head, even though I was in an isolated environment, even though no one was watching me fail, I found myself butting heads. And this happens a lot as I am someone who is constantly trying to do new things. Some things are more successful more than others, but I do consider myself a lifelong learner, and that is very much in the foundation of how I try to live and lead my life. And that comes with a bunch of failure, but one thing that I do think that I'm getting consistently better at is figuring out how to cut through not so nice voice. And I just wanted to talk about that because I think it's important in a very critical world to help ourselves hold ourselves in a safe space. I think the main thing that helps me when I notice myself getting too in my head is I try, this sounds very Freudian, and maybe it is, but I just try and picture myself as a kid in a ballet class. You would never go to a toddler's ballet recital and be really critical about it, you know? Everyone claps, everyone's like, wow, this is so cute. Look at these little sentient beings learning things. And that's amazing. And I think there's something to be said about, being an adult or being someone who's more conscious of their action, having the ability to take in feedback. But I think when you're in the very early stages, you gotta be that clapping mom in the audience that is just so happy that their child is moving their limbs and seem to be having a good time. So having that vehicle for me has made it a lot easier to be just conscious and proud of myself for putting myself in a vulnerable position where I do look like a novice, because I am a novice and that's okay. I think the other thing that is important to realize is that embarrassing yourself is part of learning. If you're not embarrassing yourself, you're probably not trying hard enough to take yourself to a new level. Obviously, there's a line to that, but that just goes to show that you're inevitably going to be putting yourself in an uncomfortable position where you know that you're not where you want to be. But just knowing that you have that perspective and knowing that you're at the bottom, that's enough to know that you're going to be able to learn as long as you follow through and consistently work at it. I will also say that if there are people online or otherwise who are criticizing you, I can almost guarantee that those people are not going out of their way to learn things, or there's this trade-off, right? I'd much rather be a little embarrassed of myself in the short term than in the long term staying stagnant or just avoiding learning the things that I want to learn. I think I've noticed a lot of times the art and humor of today is self-deprecating and ironic, and I think that ends up being a really cool self-defense mechanism, because if I call it first, no one else can. But I think our flaws and our learning process is what makes us so special. And so I try and ask myself whenever I'm making something, am I being overly conscious about this because that makes sense for the purpose of the piece of art or whatever I'm trying to learn? Or am I just doing that to protect myself from the opinions of other people? But the thing is that protection is false either way. You can never control what people are going to think about you, but you can control how much you're willing to put yourself out there and how much you are willing to bet on yourself. I think it's also been really helpful for me to remember that I cannot expect people to understand all the different facets of me and all the context of my life, right? I think our feelings get hurt when there's too much main character syndrome, because we just assume that this person who is chastising or making fun of us or whatever, and pointing out how we're embarrassing ourselves, doesn't have the full picture. And maybe we don't need to assume or ask that they do for us to grow. At the end of the day, no one really cares. We are all just very small people trying to make do in a really crazy world. So follow your desires, do what makes you sing. Go and embarrass yourself, be cringy, because that means you're learning. Try stuff. Try all of the things. I've tried and failed so many different things. And I will continue to try and fail all the other things.